Now back to the schoolhouse, located halfway down the hill toward Mr. Highwow's house, and the road going way down the second part of the hill and beyond to the meadow where we slid and romped on the ice in winter. We had no skates, but made believe we did. Some of the kids had clamp-on skates. I think my older brothers did, too. I believe that we seldom had at this little red schoolhouse, Gates Hill School. And you know, it really was painted red. There were probably never more than 15 children at any one given time, perhaps 18. That was really, really a large number. Now, sometimes, going down that hill in winter, we attached all the sleds together to make a toboggan. When we started down from the top of the hill and kept going until we came to the meadow, we could only have one ride. Even one complete ride made us late for classes. By the time we walked back up again. Being a student in a rural area school was very different from a modern-day central school with many rooms, many teachers, and many conveniences that are now taken for granted and absolutely necessary. I agree with that now because of the advances in technology and the need for children to learn about them. This, of course, includes so much more diversified math and reading as well, although reading was important no matter which time or which decade it may have been. In Salem, when I gave up teaching, they built a centralized school, so now for many, many, many years, the children are all bused to school. I don't remember my first day at school. I remember not understanding all that was spoken, but it wasn't long before I did, as well as the other kids. I was very curious and anxious to learn everything. My mind was always alert to the goings-on throughout the day in the classroom, so I listened to the other classes' recitations and absorbed as much as I could understand. It wasn't difficult because all the grades were in one room. By the time I reached the 4th grade, I knew almost all that was taught in the 5th, so I was double promoted. I skipped grade 5 and went straight into the 6th from the 4th. I was little and short and very naive, so when the teacher wanted to double promote me again and graduate me at age 12, the superintendent of schools stepped in. He was against her decision and had me stay throughout the 7th and 8th grades. I'm glad he did. I was too much of a little hick girl, although I was then 13 years old. The city seemed to me too much. Too many people, too much hustle and bustle, commotion, too many buildings. Although 60 years ago the city of Norwich was in no way what it is now. But you see, I was not accustomed to all that activity, being a little farm girl. When I did go to the academy, Norwich Free Academy, NFA for short, I was floored and overwhelmed with its size and the number of students there and the physical sizes of some of them. All these things felt very awesome. Some of the seniors, even the juniors, seemed to me as if they were men and women, not students. For quite a while I would get lost in the building. My head swam and I'd get flustered, sometimes to the point of being afraid. I was 13, but not 13 in life's experiences. And of course, we had our different classes in different rooms, and we had to go from room to room, and of course that was a new experience too. There were no buses to take us to school daily as there are now. There is no need for anyone in the rural areas not to get at least a high school education. You see, at that time, the girls could advertise for mothers' helpers positions for their board and keep during the school year. That is how the girls were able to go on further in school, and it was difficult to send the boys to high school. Now, I have to add here that we didn't even have to advertise in the paper for a mother's helper position because the families in Norwich themselves advertised for girls to be mother's helpers. So we had many choices. Now there is a bus service to the remotest sections in the rural areas, thus taking all prospective students to schools of their choice. The roads are all macadamized for easy transportation. They're widened, and they kept open during the winter seasons. So different when I was going to high school. One of my sisters, Stella, was a mother's helper when she went to high school. But my sister Sue was already driven to school daily by bus. During my 4 years at NFA, I stayed with 4 different families. When one didn't need me anymore, there was always someone who wanted a young girl to help them. I finished my senior year with a family friend. It was Mr. Rathbone. You remember me mentioning that family before. They were such lovely people, and they had moved from our area to Norwich. Mrs. Rathbone was dead at the time when I stayed in my senior year at her house. And Mr. Rathbone lived alone. He was like a grandfather to me. What a wonderful man he was. I had to, he made the best pancakes I ever ate in my life. He was wonderful. And I think every morning for breakfast we did have the pancakes. Now, I walked to school from his house, and that was like a 2-mile walk. You know, at that time it would have cost just a nickel to get to the square in town and then get a transfer and take another bus or trolley car then to the school. But I didn't. I walked. A nickel seemed too much.